Yeah! Wait, there's actually a program for this.
Today on Nonsense Wars, we look at the $100 657 part 1999 vintage set 9748 Droid Developer Kit. Another entry-level Mindstorms set like the Robotics Discovery. The much more recent 75253 Droid Commander seems to target the same niche, though it costs twice as much, contains twice as many parts, and probably has more than twice the functionality. Still, we will look at some key models in the DDK and how it can combine with other sets of the same era. As usual, we'll start with the packaging and contents. The box feels pretty standard for this time. It has a nice graphic on the front, some descriptive text and some models on the back, and some technical information on the side. Perhaps most interestingly, you can see how LEGO segmented the 3 contemporary Mindstorm sets, and how the lowest offering, the DDK, required a PC, whereas the middle offering, the RDS, did not. The parts come in the typical cardboard inner box with an inset plastic tray. The set includes a large number of parts, almost double that of 9735, though only a handful of unusual ones, including, but not limited to, the R2-D2 panels, gray tires, flex cable, and of course the Micro Scout itself. We also get a physical instruction manual along with the software CD. The DDK app consists mostly of digital instructions, as the Micro Scout has no way to communicate with a computer without an intermediary brick. You progress through 3 levels of instruction, and each one unlocks after you build the preceding level's models and answer some easy questions about said models. You can also skip ahead with some hotkeys buried in the physical manual. All instructions, where applicable, animate similarly to those in the Cybermaster software. The relatively primitive program appears to store these and the entire UI in vanilla image and video files, and you can access them straight off the disk if you know where to look. We will show more examples of the animations and the UI as a whole at the end of the video. Jedi Apprentice models have end-to-end building instructions, which LEGO apparently decided to duplicate between the physical and digital ones. We built the most recognizable of these, the iconic R2-D2. As usual, this model has some construction oddities. It uses cross-axle pins to constrain some of the panels. It leverages the notches on the side of these perpendicular joiners, and it reinforces some of its feet with the bionicle foot piece. Speaking of feet, the front and back ones aren't actually entirely level, though that doesn't seem to affect performance. The Micro Scout has a single motor and a light sensor controlled by 7 built-in programs. These routines drive the motor in a fixed pattern or trigger some interaction with said sensor. Due to these limitations, most of the moving models work the same way. A pivoting wheel allows them to drive straight forward or turn backward. While not an official feature, you can also adjust the turning amount by adding or removing plates from this stopper. Jedi Knight models consist of modules that each have end-to-end instructions, but you have to figure out which ones to combine based on the description in the software. The printed instructions only feature a subset of these modules. When assembled, these form a long robot with the rotating drive wheel and a manually operated claw. It runs the same way as R2-D2, though we had to modify it a little to get the full travel out of the pivot.
Now it works really well. Keep going.
The claw module uses flex cable to drive an under-actuated mechanism. It also uses the long hole in the 9x5 lift arm for structure. When attached to the driven end of the core module and combined with a base module, the claw forms the centerpiece of another Knight level configuration. An alarm bot conceptually similar to the one in Robotics Discovery. We also found it just as finicky. The sensor needs a lot of light to activate, and the payload can easily fall out or not drop if not set up perfectly. Jedi Master models have assemblies with no instructions built on top of the Knight level modules. You have to figure out how to build these by looking at some video. This Master level model features a battle droid on a stap. It utilizes a program that emits a series of beeps and expects you to repeat them using light. If you do it correctly, the motor turns one way and the droid falls off, and if you do it incorrectly, the motor turns the other way and the droid stays on. We liked the idea of this model, both the unique prototype and the hint of gamification. Unfortunately, it needed tweaks as well, perhaps due to the age of the rubber bands. We needed to increase the tension of the return mechanism, or the droid would fall off either way. Finally, matching the timing of the beeps with a flashlight actually takes a bit of practice, for better or for worse. Now, the DDK documentation hints at its ability to combine with other Mindstorms products, such as the Dark Side Developer Kit or the Robotics Invention System, though it doesn't really go into detail about how these integrations work. The DSDK mostly builds walkers and therefore has a larger core with outputs on both ends and more gear reduction. It nonetheless has the same mounting points as the DDK frame, and the instructions hint at using it with the DDK claw module. This doesn't actually make that much sense though. The claw doesn't really benefit from the additional gearing, and now it travels the wrong way for something like the alarm program. The big frame has its own construction weirdness, including some steps that need flexing and some cranks that need synchronizing. Perhaps more curiously, our DSDK Scout seems to have a misprint. The instructions show a red axle connector, but our unit has a blue one. It also had a somewhat unresponsive select button before we took it apart to clean the contacts underneath. Inside, the gearbox looked very similar to the ones used in the 9-volt geared motor and the Spybotics hub. Lastly, the RIS integration makes a little more sense. The RCX frame allows you to have different motors driving the front and back outputs. Using this core gives the Knight level robot from before independent control over the claw and the drive. You still need to find a way to add sensors and programming if you want it to do anything smart, but the presence of the RCX at least allows us to drive it around using the Mindstorms remote, giving it similar functionality to the 8082 loader. Overall, this set might not impress by today's standard, but they did a lot with one motor, one sensor, and 7 fixed programs. It's interesting that the second set in this line, the Darkside developer, does away with the PC software entirely, and we can look at that later if there's any interest. On that note, this is the end of the commentary. Enjoy these clips of the audio and video from the DDK software.
Welcome back, newcomer. Make your choices. Microscout tutorial activated. The P program is a special function, but it's for future use only. Keep checking the LEGO website at legomindstorms.com for updates on this function. You may play individual steps to the instructions by clicking here. Use these buttons to move backwards and forwards through the instructions. The slider is for zipping quickly backwards or forwards through a single step in detail. Correct. Proceed to the second program. Program 2. The droid drove backwards. The droid drove backwards, then forwards. It repeated this function 3 times. The droid told you a joke. You have chosen wisely. Proceed. Program 3. The droid levitated and spoke an ancient Jedi chant. The droid's alarm sounded when it sensed a light source. The droid moved backwards unless it sensed a light source causing it to move forwards. Select the next challenge to continue. Challenge 3. Build your own carrier droid to transport dangerous goods while you keep a safe distance. Use this system to help you decide on a challenge solution. Your challenge is to build the OPC creature. Examine the way the creature moves so that you can emulate its functions using your bricks. RCX frame. The RCX is not included here